Welcome to the Delight and the Limelight show. Thanks for coming on, watching the replay. I'm your host, Linda Ugelow, a speaking confidence coach and author of the book, Delight in the Limelight. I'm here to transform your experience of speaking from dread to loving it instead, whether it's on stage, on camera, in the media, or the meeting room, or somewhere else. And here to help me unpack how to go from feeling unworthy or bad about yourself to a sense of greatness is Howard Glasser. He offers a new approach that was forged in the fires of learning how to handle and transform difficult children, which is the name of his first book, Transforming the Difficult Child. His ideas have totally transformed my parenting, how I move through the world, and how I teach. And we're going to look at the nurtured heart approach and find the relevance to feeling safe to be seen and heard. Welcome, Howard, or Howie, as I now know you like to be called.
I'd like to think of myself as not mature enough to sustain the name Howard.
I like that. I like that. Not mature enough to sustain. always childlike.
It sounds so formidable. Howie sounds so childlike, and that suits me.
Oh, that's sweet. Actually, I have a memory of I had a Howie that was my dentist, my orthodontist, and it was my mother's cousin. So it was a generation above me, but he was one of the kindest adults in my life. Yeah.
Wow. That's a great association with a dentist.
I have a great association with the name Howie. Yes. Yes. So I just want to share with you how impactful your books have been on my life for the last 25 years, really. When I was asked to take care of my two nephews who were very rambunctious, like sugared up wallabies on pogo sticks. And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I Googled how to handle rambunctious children, and I came across your book. I read it on the flight down to Florida that night, like I was cramming for the SATs. And I used the approach of what I could glean in one night's reading. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was hard. And we're going to unpack this a little bit of what the approach actually entails. But it was so effective. And after that, I thought, I'm going to use this everywhere. And I have. So I've used it with my husband. It does work with spouses. And I used it with, friends.
Did you say spouses or spazzes?
Spouses.
Okay.
Spouses, my husband, yeah. And it makes life much more beautiful.
Wow, I am delighted in the limelight. What a great story. The only thing I'll contest is it might have been the GREs on the way, like cramming, that reading a book on a flight down to Florida it sounds more like the graduate version.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I
could give you a nutshell of
give us a nutshell.
Nurtured heart approach came to be about seeing that the same dang intensity that drives us crazy, that's driving the rambunctious, I love that word, behavior, the intense, difficult, challenging, worrisome behavior is actually the very fuel of a child's greatness. That's the premise, is that what we try and throw a blanket over or pretend, pull our hair out, look, and snuff out, medicate away, is really the nectar that we've wanted all along. If you've ever raised your voice to a child and said, get your hubba, get your act together, it's only because we believe that a child can do something. We wouldn't be talking to a fence post that way.
Mhm.
We're only frustrated because we have an inherent belief in a child's greatness. So what we wanted all along was transformation. Transformation to me is turning that corner of using the intensity purposefully. And I believe the midway piece is inner wealth. That if we could see that the way we interact with a child can create inner wealth, um, which turns out to be applicable to spouses and business relations and everybody else we come in contact. Whoa, even ourselves. We're interconnected with everybody. Whether we realize it or not, we do relate to everybody one way or another. And we can use our relations to promote inner wealth. Makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're saying here about that we're frustrated because we see this energy, the energy that we put into our frustration is our desire, our deep desire as well, to see the greatness of the child come out.
Yes.
And I think that's very helpful in helping us to feel less judgmental about doing things in an inadvertently upside down way, which you talk about in your book, the
Yeah.
upside down approach. Can you say something about that?
Yeah. So the norm of, this came out of my being a therapist, a family therapist. I studied clinical psychology. I never made it to the finish line because I decided, and I'm going to mention something because it's key here. It helped me enormously. Is before my dissertation, at the end game of getting doing my doctoral work, I just got it in my head that I wanted to live my childhood dream of woodworking. I didn't, I pulled that out of the sky. Where that came from, I'll never know. But anyway, I wound up doing that. I thought for a year. I wound up doing it for 15 years. It was too late to go back. I was starting a family. I was ready for no sawdust and no fumes. And I got hired at a family clinic, and I was seeing, one after another, families in distress, families who had every denomination of challenge with their kid, and they were simply trying as hard as they could with what they knew. And I was trying to give them advice based on what I had studied and what I was learning on the fly, that I'm sure worked for somebody somewhere along the line, but it sure, maybe because I'd been away 15 years and I had fresh eyes, and my 15 years of burning the candle at both ends broke me open, and I could see differently. But what I saw was that no advice I gave was not only was it not working, it was making things worse. I was doing exactly what the parents were doing. They were trying as hard as they could, and everything they tried made things worse. And I finally, beyond, when I had nothing left, it sounds like a Seinfeld, I had nothing. Unbelievably, I was able to see that there were things the adults, the mom, dad, grandparents would say that actually would get the child to lean in. And there were things that they said, unbeknownst to themselves, where the child got, thrown asunder by this invisible force of energy. Like there was energy conveyed in what people said. And some of it brought things together and some of it blew things apart. And the parents, the adults were none the wiser. And so I started threading that needle. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, and then I'd come in with some story, metaphor, fork way of explaining things to parents. And I was able to convey to parents in a way where they, you could see the aha moment where they go, oh, crap, I've been upside down, to use your term. I want my child to follow directions, but they've watched the truth of me and come to realize that they get a greater gift of me when things go wrong than when things go right. When things go right, I'm pretty, inconsequential. I say thank you, good job once in a while, pretty low key, conversationally, interactionally. But when things go wrong, not only do I say more explicit things, but I ramp up, the opposite of delight in the limelight. Now the child gets in the limelight by doing something wrong. And then, when it continues going wrong, the belief in our society is if only we get more drastic and punitive, harsh, adamant, argumentative, that the child's going to come to their senses. And actually, all the while, we're giving a greater gift of us. And to go to your subject of learning public speaking, I could see where somebody's distressed and frustrated that they have something to say, but they're not getting it out. And they have that inner conversation with themselves where, we think nothing of having, a long, engaging, explicit conversation with ourselves for things we can't do. But when we do something in the direction we want, we barely say anything. So my work is about flipping that over, about getting real clear. I am not going to do that. I am not going to give the gift of me to negativity. I am, the second stand, so to speak, of my work is I am going to generously, determinedly, purposefully give the gift of me, the gift of what I have to say, my appreciation to what I want to, very deliberate. And the third kind of stand is I have these personal boundaries. I have rules for the people in my life and for myself. And here's where I cross the line, and here's where I get on alert of what I am going to do and what I'm not going to do.
So to give an example of the boundaries, is it that if something happens that you're not liking,
yes,
that is not how you want it to go, that kind of triggers a decision-making process? Is that what you're saying?
Good description. Yes.
A decision-making process to how would you take it from there?
Yeah. Thanks, Linda. Good handoff. I didn't fumble. If I have a rule, no eye rolling, I'm trying to think of what rules parents have, or no arguing. Those are two things that trigger a lot of parents. And I see a child begin to argue. And I believe, like in sports, a little bit of a broken rule is a broken rule. It's a different way of playing hardball. And in this different way of playing hardball, if I have a rule, no arguing, and even like a toes on the line, I mean, the beauty of that perspective of a toe on the line is if I see a child wanting to argue, but they don't, that's where I'm going to jump in with 2 feet, because I want to say, hey, kiddo, listen up. I got to tell you something wonderful. You I said something you didn't like. You looked like you wanted to argue. You restrained yourself. That shows me your wisdom and power. Those are beautiful qualities I see in you. That's where I want to really live. That's where I get to, as an investment broker, so to speak, I'm building inner wealth. That to me is a differential. But if the arguing does spill out seconds later or originally, then I just simply want to say the word reset, which is just a signal consequence. And I want to unplug me, know me for you. And but then maybe 2 seconds later, I want to live in the truth of the moment. That's important to me. That's my hill to die on. I want to be in the truth. We as Americans say we're truth seekers, like that's a way to live in the truth. So if 2 seconds later we get what we want, which is the child's unhappy, they look distressed and upset, but they're not arguing. I want to say, thanks for doing your consequence. It's an illusion. Think of how kids play video games. It's
the quickness.
Yeah, they get to live in a platform of that upholds their greatness, because here they are going towards the goals, getting the goals. The game is screaming at them energetically with verification that they're successful. And all they want to do is go level, 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 be the best in the world. And if they break a rule even a hair, the game unplugs them. 2 seconds, they're out of the game for 2 seconds. I mean, the screen might contradict that. It might show things blowing up and blood spurting, and it looks drastic, but who's back in the game in 2 seconds? And they're not only back in the game, they're that much more determined never to break that rule again and to keep going, level, level, level. I want, it's all an illusion. They were only out of the game for 2 seconds. Nobody's trounced on them. So I want to create that same illusion. Thanks for doing your consequence. Now, even though you look unhappy about my decision, you're not arguing. You're handling your strong feelings well, and you're being powerful. Let me tell you how you're being powerful. Because it's not easy to be upset and to make a choice, to follow a rule that you think is a stupid rule, and you're doing it.
Yeah, wow. I remember reading a line in your book about that. This is really transforming us as parents, and I felt that way when I first read the book. I felt like, wow, this is like heavy brain work. Like I'd see my nephews and it's like, what can I say? What can I say? Oh, you walked in for breakfast all dressed and ready to go. You know how to plan for your day. But, it like burned up so many brain calories to find that. And I think that this is the challenge, is how do we begin to train ourselves to be always on the lookout for what we like and appreciate, and why it's so good.
I believe that normal praise, thank you, good job. Like if I say, Linda, thank you very much, good job, way to go, great, fantastic. Those are glowing, but they're evaporative. They're vague. They have no inherent information. That's to me the enemy. Mm-hmm. That said, sometimes at the checkout counter, I feel like saying thank you, and I stop myself. Can I tell you what I'm thankful for? And then I get more explicit. We think nothing of being explicit when we're vilifying somebody or when we're critiquing somebody. It comes so naturally. We're poets when it comes to what's wrong. And I believe that we could make a great wave of difference by not only risking deep appreciation that's explicit, poetic, but even waltzing into the soul level of greatness. To me, greatness is a different realm. For instance, how not great would it be if you were interrupting every word I was saying and you had me on as a speaker, but you were so consumed with your own thoughts or so excited about this, that, and the other thing that I could barely get a word in. It would be very not great. So therefore, how great is it that you're listening so keenly, that you're so present, that you're so alive in this discussion, and you're allowing me to finish a few sentences and allowing me to come up to my own pause and then being right there in conversation, which is kind of what we had hoped for. So I hope you see the difference. To me, those are great qualities I see in you, that are polished and passionate and caring, and they reflect your superpower of ability to listen deeply.
I'm taking that in. And I think that is, thank you so much. I love that as an example. I appreciate being the recipient of those beautiful poetic waxings, and I feel seen.
Yeah, and it's anchored in the truth. It's not BS. I think people are allergic to BS, rightfully. Kids are allergic to BS. But most people who talk about being more specific don't talk to kids on a soul level.
Yeah,
and
I think what you're doing is different. I am going to interrupt you because
I love your verve.
Exactly. I can be that way too. Because what you are talking about is on the energy level. And that's what is so, to me, transformational. It's the paradigm shift. It's that how you describe in your books that it's as if you're giving $100 bill to kids anytime that they are acting in a way that you don't appreciate. It's like, oh, terrible behavior. Here's some money.
Yeah.
And what you're saying, no, I love this, like matter of fact, neutral, even boring when it comes to setting the boundaries, that's like on an energetic level that we have to like bring it down, bring it to calm. And like, there's nothing interesting there.
Yeah.
But the interest is in the essence.
Yes. Yeah. The essence, the energy. So yesterday I was having a conversation with a colleague, and this might be relevant to public speaking, which I believe is your gig. And I was telling him that the evaporative part about encountering blind spots, is we don't know what our blind spots are. They're just inherently, out of our grasp, because we could sense we've run into a wall and we've hit a personal inner limit, and there's some unconscious dark part of our life that keeps jumping up and biting us. But since we can't see it, we don't necessarily know what to do with it. But I believe that nevertheless, we can go, yay, energy. There's a whole lot of blind spots and walls I'm encountering, and I could breathe that in, just like we're welcoming a child's intensity instead of thwarting it. We could take our own, it's our spirit rising. It's our moment to grow. So I could relish, I could embrace that energy instead of bracing against it and getting inwardly combative. And I could decide what do I want to do with this energy? I could breathe it into the deepest part of me, and then I could create a new message for myself. I am a great public speaker. I feel a great freedom and aliveness in speaking publicly, knowing my words are going to be meaningful. And then I could send that out to my universe. We have 4 million new cells per second. That's a biological fact? That's wild. What do you want to tell your new self, your new cells? You want to say some flatline, dying message about ourselves that we're schmageggies? I haven't said that word in a long time. That we're unable to do this, that, and the other thing, or do we want to say something alive and enhancing and inspiring? Yeah. And we have that inner ability to do that.
Yeah. Oh, we certainly have a lot of tools at our disposal that we can activate, for sure.
We're public speaking all the time.
We are. I say that. Yeah, anytime we open up our mouths.
No, even privately, the inner dialogue is public speak. It's like if we think of ourselves as 1 trillion cells, we're public speaking all the time. We have an audience of 1 trillion.
There we go.
We're always in the limelight, and do we delight in the limelight, or do we de-light the limelight?
Okay, Howie, you just took me to another level deeper. Thank you. I always say that anytime we open our mouths, including when we speak out loud to ourselves, but you're saying even inside, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you. I want to circle back to the way we speak to each other, because something that I think happens for adults and in the workplace or even in the home is this idea of constructive feedback. And, it's like the positive sandwich. You say something positive, and then there's the negative, and then you sandwich it in with another nice thing. But no matter how nice those things are, when someone says, I want to give you some constructive feedback, the negative is coming.
Right.
And we brace ourselves for the blow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And to me, so after reading your books, I decided I'm going to see how far we can take this, because you have whole school systems that are using your methodology with amazing results. And I'm thinking, why can't we also do that in terms of our learning as adults? So I, for instance, had a breakthrough retreat where I had a group of people come together for 4 days. And we did some clearing of past experiences. We did some speaking in front of each other. We did improv, we did dancing, we did all kinds of things.
Wow,
and one of the comments, yeah, it was.
I need to come to one of your retreats.
Okay, well, now that we can again. One of my participants said afterwards, what really struck her was that it was all based on positive mirroring reflections. And yet she still felt she grew as a speaker, not just cleared things away, but that she learned how to be a better speaker. Even though nobody said, you shouldn't do this, or don't do this, or, this is not good, or, got to work on that piece. There was none of that. I'm always looking to, like I have a comfy on camera class where I teach people to get comfortable in front of the lens. And I describe the types of comments that I want them to make for each other. And everyone's required to comment on 3 or more videos of other people. And of course, you're getting them yourself too. So you hear things like, you come across as someone who is so trustworthy, or I love the sound of your voice. I love the energy and the smiling that you put in. It made me feel so relaxed and at home. And I don't know what you're talking about in terms of thinking that you're boring. I was hanging on every word you said. I love this and this and that. So, and all of a sudden you look at the comments on your video and you see all these incredible responses and you feel uplifted. And yet, even though no one is saying, lighting should be better, or, you might think about being more concise or whatever, people do build on their craft. Why? Because they are looking at what
Did you
they
say
like.
build on their crap or build on their craft?
I need to be more articulate. Build on their craft. Thank you. I appreciate that. Because they're constantly looking about what they like and appreciate in other people's. And when they see other people doing things that they like, they immediately think, maybe I'll try that too. Oh, this person started with a question, or this person did that. I really liked that. I'm going to try that out on my next one.
Yeah.
So it's like we start to, like, even without, now sometimes I do come in and I build upon, I say, you might try blah, blah, blah. You might consider doing this if you feel like it. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But everybody improves in spite of the fact that no one is being faced with how many times they said or using filler words, or being told that they're not good in any sort of way.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. And I think it's amazing to the people who go through the program.
It's a different way of growing, isn't it? It's
yes.
a different way of moving forward. It's a different belief. Like in grad school in psychology, there's a bunch of beliefs. One is, if if your past is haunting, then if only you talk about it and you get it all out on the table, and you understand it all, everything will be better. And it's not necessarily true. First of all, just sitting and talking to another person about not the craft, but the crap, it's yet another person who's there for you vis-a-vis negativity. It's mostly what we inherit from the cultures we grow up with, that's how we're there for ourselves. The other belief I encountered in school was, if you feel all your emotions, if you get all that emotionality out, everything will be better. That's not necessarily true, because yet again, you're doing it vis-a-vis another person, and they're deepening your unconscious belief that it's by way of negativity that we're most alive and we get the most action. We get the most, connectivity, better broadband. Nobody wants dial-up. We all want better broadband. And we discover we get more of it accidentally through negativity. Like you referred to, nobody in their right mind would give a kid $100 bill for yelling and screaming and cussing, but accidentally we do it all the time because we're drawn to saying, no, that's not okay. I never want you to do that again. Don't use bad words. Instead of doing exactly what you're saying, which is take the same energy and to redevelop it and believe in this alternative path where we can pause the action when the violation happens. We don't have to do tick marks for every the speaker says. What we could do is just catapult right over that and talk to all the wellness that's right there staring us in the face. Talk to all the high points and help the person inherently believe in themselves more And by way of believing in themselves more, they're more profoundly able to go forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different path.
It is a different path. And it's interesting because in my private coaching, and I also have another course that's helps people journal their way to overcoming the fear. I do have people bring up to discover the impacting past experiences, because I personally think it's been helpful for me to recognize what kinds of things impacted me, but I don't believe in talking about it. What I believe is applying a creative approach to widening widening the experience of it in different ways, whether it's through creative visualization, or I use EFT, emotional freedom technique, or things like that. But as soon as someone brings something up, I find out a little bit about it, we clear it away. Maybe another session we might revisit it, but often that was it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Linda. I am with you. So I just want to underline that as an alternative path is the fact that we have past is an inescapable truth.
Yeah.
I believe we get just the right amount of past every day that gives us a dose of inspiration if we see it that way. If we go yucky energy, I need to get rid of it, then we deepen our upside down relationship. If we go, I'm not saying the past that comes up is always pretty. It could be overwhelming at times. I've learned over the years, because of my inner practice of nurtured heart approach, is to welcome it in as best I can and go, okay, energy, let me milk that cow. I want to get the nectar. I'm just gonna breathe it all in, kind of see if I can. Do you know how our lungs have this amazing ability to breathe air, even dicey air, and get oxygen out of it? It's the nectar in the air we're getting, and then our lungs have this marvelous way of sending it out to every cell of our body. I want my soul to do the same thing. I want to milk the nectar out of whatever comes my way, past, present, future, and see it for what it is and go, okay, what do I want to do with this nectar? How do I want to repurpose it and use it to energize my empire? What message do I want to sell to every send to myself, to my cells of my body, and make them more enhanced and inspired? That's the game. That's the delusional game I play with myself. Yeah. And I have reason to believe it works, because sometimes I go, I am great passion and compassion, and I send it out to myself, and then I'm out like goofing around at the store, being silly with playing golf or whatever I do, and people I see corresponding to me in a different way, and I went, sometimes the spark goes off. Wow, I've done some inner work. I've moved some proverbial mountains. I am being more compassionate, even though, I didn't have to take a class in compassion or, read a book on compassion. I am somehow having an experience of enhancement in that realm, because of just owning and playing on an energetic level. It's play.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is amazing as human beings that we have the ability to shift our energy in that way of I talk about that, about peak performance also. It's like, how do we put ourselves into a state where we feel like all of our cells are buzzing, or, we have this sense of openness? And how do we keep ourselves in that state of openness, let's say, while we're waiting for our turn to speak, so that we can be fully in the present moment rather than going into this mind thinking, oh my God, it's getting closer to my turn. Am I ready? What happened? Like all the, that one.
Yeah, I do. It's a familiar.
Yeah, but what you're saying is like breathing it into your cells. And we have that capability. We have that choice when we have the awareness that, that it is one of the accessible paths available to us.
Yeah. Do you not only speak, but have a speaker's bureau?
No, I don't have a speaker's bureau.
Yeah, I could see you having that, something like that. But you help a lot of people in public speaking to be their best and to go from being daunted to being undaunted.
Yeah, I'm all about the inner experience. I want people to love the experience of speaking. Because I feel like it's our human design. Wow. Children, we are born to speak. We can't stop it. It happens. And children delight in it and they love it. And we delight in children for the most part when they first begin.
until somebody along the line says, don't you open your mouth again.
Right. And then, so it's all this stuff that happens.
To say this, that, and that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like it's been a lifelong journey for me to get to like reclaim my delight in being seen and heard and feeling like I can own that space.
Yeah.
And then more recently being able to really reclaim the actual vocal production. I think that the actual speaking that we do, the sounding that we make, the vibration that we create is more magnificent than we ever think about in our lives, usually, unless you're doing, you're in acting or a singer or in speech pathology. Something.
I'd like to hear another couple of sentences on that part, the vocal production, the caliber. I'd like to, because I could see your enhanced ability. I could see, it's very, very apparent to me in your energetic, totality that you've done so much work on yourself and that you are really walking the talk of delighting in being in the limelight. Now that you've mentioned this vocal production component I'd love to hear what you mean.
Our bodies are these instruments that we have this capacity to flow the air across these vocal folds that create a sound. And it creates a vibration in our body. So even on this very physical, sensorial level, we are like, what does vibration do for us? Vibration is very powerful. I'm not a researcher, I'm not a scientist, but I know that vibration affects us. And so we have the capacity to affect ourselves through our own physical vibration of our sound as we're speaking. So there's a sense of pleasure in there. Like we can go, ah, ah, or even that. There's like, we have all these ways of like the whole notion of the expression is like on the exhale, it can be on the inhale too, but it's about releasing, and our sound releases on the flow of the air.
How we're going to produce a sound, how we're going to choose to revibrate. It's
Yes,
like
I like that vibrate.
the word that comes to me is a tone.
Mm-hmm.
Like atonement has other meaning, how we're going to atone, um, going forward,
Yeah,
how we're going to attune. It's musical
it
too.
is musical.
Of mine was kind of reading into my energy yesterday, and just a dear friend, and she was saying that she sensed that Nurtured Heart Approach had a musical future, like a something that was enlightening, um, in terms of um, how the frequency of words.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gathering you're talking about like a form of play,
Mm-hmm.
playing with words, playing with the folds of your vocal cords, playing with how you choose to on the out breath. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun because what happens is that the more mindful we are of the vocal production, I mean, I thought it was pretty hysterical when you'd say, did you say crap or craft? Because one of the classes I teach is delicious diction. And I just think it's funny for me to hear myself in the ways that I don't
I was
have articulation. But what I wanted to bring forward is this idea that when we are inside the sound of our voice and the expression of the voice and how we want to bring the words out for meaning, all of a sudden we're like a tour guide for the people listening because we have the capability of putting emphasis or pauses or volume or tone. We can play with different ways as we get excited. We can get faster, we can get slower, but all these things allow the communication to happen on another level. Because I let you know what is important in what I just said, or what I think is important in what I just said. By the way, I say it.
Yeah. And
I can also like invite more listening to you by bringing more contrast into my voice. Because if I'm always speaking this way, which is very calm, which is maybe how we want to handle things that are not the way we want them to be, but we can be conscious of our voice and our tone. And then we give more excitement and more variety and energy. It can play in with this reflecting that you are encouraging us to be mindful of. We can be playful with our voices.
Yeah, I've met a couple of people in woodworking who are there's a really beautiful, I think it's European origin word for masterful, a virtuoso. A virtuoso is a musical word, and you are a virtuoso of the voice. It's so apparent that you can be deliberate in choosing how you're going to take the content you're reading, you're pushing up to the finish line, and how you're gonna deliver it is not by way of lack of choice. That you're gonna harvest the words in a purposeful way, and it's so funny on the heels of my conversation yesterday to hear you saying this and to gather that you have this in your it's more than a bag of tricks. It's who you are. and we could look at your listeners, however many thousands of listeners are listening to this. It's so clear that you've this is a product of your career, that it's no accident. And how not great would it be if you hadn't done all this looking deeply into yourself and building yourself up to prepare yourself to have this wonderful variety of it's beyond variety. It's you in every, it's like a great musician. In every second, you get to take the sounds and how you're going to dance around into the sounds and how you're going to dance them out through the instrument of you out into the world. It's very virtuosic, if that's the right word. And it's just beautiful for me to imagine. And I'm delighting in the coincidence of the timing of this conversation and hearing what you have to say. Tell me what I'd like to hear. I'm being greedy now. Tell me even more if you have more to say.
Yeah, the other thing I would like to add is that it's a way of us anchoring into ourselves, connecting with ourselves. That when we spend time playing with our voice, maybe like a 2-year-old would. Like I lie in bed in the middle of the night. I did it at 4 a.m. just going, like just feeling that little breath crossing the vocal folds. Like, oh yeah, that's where that place is. Because this was like a unseen area, my neck. I had no feeling inside my throat. Now I've been a singer for 40 years. I've taken vocal lessons for 40 years every week, at least with one teacher. And I always felt like I was in remedial singing. I never felt like I knew how to reproduce what I was doing. I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. Or that's not entirely true. I was getting somewhere, but I didn't get it. Just didn't get it. And when I was writing my book, I started to write about the breath we take and the sounds we make. And I thought, should this be in the book or not? I thought, yes, it has to be in the book because speaking is we speak. It's a physical thing that we're doing. And it set me on a journey to go back to like the very, very, very basic part of making sound. And I found that was the gateway for me to discover my voice, go back to the very, very beginning. I realized that I've been demanding of myself and with my teachers who I've learned a tremendous amount from, all of them. But it was like beyond basic. The basic thing is just, can I feel how the sound is crossing my vocal cords? And can I even feel in that area of my body? It took me a while to develop any kind of feeling at all. So I feel that this practice of playing like a 2-year-old and just making little tiny sounds and enjoying them and feeling curious kind of brings us into our body. And then from there, we can develop, well, what is tone? How do I make tone? How do I allow the words of my breath, the words that I make to write on my breath? What are these consonants? What am I doing with my tongue and my teeth and my jaw and my lips? Like all of these things are fascinating, but we are masterful already. You are masterful in your speaking. Anyone who speaks is doing a masterful job, but they're not recognizing it, that this is an amazing thing that we are doing. It's so complex, so high level. And when you begin to appreciate it and experience it, it brings you out of your head and into your body.
Yeah. Can I comment on something you just said?
Sure.
The word appreciation, when if you have anything investments in the stock market, you're hoping on any given day it's going to appreciate. When you appreciate it, you're building inner wealth. It's inescapable. We inherently grow up. It seems like the societal imprint is depreciation. We never say that about ourselves. We don't want to think that we're depreciative. But if I lie in bed and I mumbling sounds and being kind of depreciative of like stupid sounds, like I think we take voice for granted. I think we take the musical tonality of our voice and the incremental pieces of our voice. Hearing you say this, I don't think I know very many people who really deeply appreciate their voice. So how do we, if either the neutral is true, that we don't think about it, we take it for granted, or we depreciate it by, critiquing ourselves. Critiquing is inherently depreciative, unless we use critiquing to build something up. You even saying you appreciate the micro managing of your voice, you're building your inner wealth. And it's no surprise then that you have so much to say and so such enriching things flow out of inner wealth. My belief is in inner wealth. You build a kid up. You build their reservoir. In the school systems I work with, I was just in North Carolina for a documentary that's happening about nurtured heart approach. And there's a school in North Carolina. Ironically, it's in Wilson, North Carolina. It's a performing arts school called the Sally B. Howard School. It's in a predominantly minority area that's post-slavery, 4 or 5 generations, and in between was sharecropping. It didn't just go from slavery to non-slavery. It's a town where you could see the remnants of this. And on the shuttle bus in Raleigh Airport, a person asked me, where I'm going. I said, Wilson. Oh, I worked at I forget the name of the drug company, but a pharmaceutical company, and I moved to Seattle with my family, but I'm thinking of moving back to Wilson. But I worked at this company and I looked them up later, and sure enough, they make Ritalin. And I was sitting with the principal of the elementary and middle school. It's a K through 12 school in Wilson. And I said, I'm just curious how often you recommend medication. And they said, never. They looked at each other and they're trying to think the last time they recommended. Said some kids, move to, get into the school and their family has put them on medication, and we find out later on. But the norm in schools is they encounter bad behavior and they insist the child, you need to get your kid on. You need an evaluation. You need to get your kid on medicine to moderate down intensity. Their whole perspective, to make the point, is build inner wealth. And you could see the younger kids, really the suffering, the human suffering that's that post slavery toxicity that lingers in the air of this poor town. And by the time now that they have upper grades, 10, 11, 12, you see these kids and they look like they're going to be in Harvard and Yale and Howard and Morgan State and all these great schools. And they look empowered. And it's because they've been insistently recipients there of inner wealth. And you build a kid's inner wealth, they don't need medication. Why send anybody the message your intensity is a problem? We need to make it go away because you can't handle it and nobody else can handle it, when intensity is the greatest gift ever. And that's what you're teaching people. And that's what you're doing privately.
And yeah, yep. And very much because of the reading I did 25 years ago.
Huh? Is it 25 years?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I think it was. Maybe it was 22. It was over 20.
You're referring to the Nurtured Heart books that you.
Yes, the Transforming the Difficult Child. When was that published?
It was published in 1999.
Oh, so 99. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 24 years ago.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, my daughter just turned 33 and she was child one. She was like, I think she sent Nurtured Heart Approach to me because I don't want to be on planet Earth unless I get treated like energetic royalty. I don't want to be, I don't want to be, to use the title of your book, I don't want to be here on planet Earth unless my parents are delighting in the limelight of me. Yeah. And, for better or worse, she was both the experimental playground and the recipient of it all from both parents. And it was really wonderful. It was wonderful to see what inner wealth can do.
Yeah.
It made her very academically fluent and accomplished. But it gave her a perspective. What she really wanted to do was art. So she went up, you're on the East Coast, right? She went to Rhode Island School of Design, where there were other smart kids doing artwork. It was fun to see how she embraced what was really, truly important and meaningful in her life. And I think that's what people who have inner wealth do. Yeah. They increasingly live to their true self.
So I have a question for you about raising kids to be comfortable speaking to a crowd. Do you think that these kids who are in these environments where the inner wealth is being, they're being surrounded and infused with it, do you think that they are, because of that, they are able to speak comfortably?
Yes.
Because they have this inner sense of worthiness?
Yes, I think they're that much more likely. So, there was, what comes to mind is a very bizarre example of a family who had twins who were selectively mute, which is a diagnostic category. They would speak with their parent, but they wouldn't speak at school. They were afraid. And I that was my basic advice, was build inner wealth, don't sit there and talk to the kid about the problem. And I'm sure that's what they did at school is they would get the child in the office and you need to speak to your teachers and you need to speak to your fellow students. Then you're giving energy to the problem. You're deepening the problem by having that conversation, as opposed to build inner wealth. And I've watched before my eyes those two kids and another family who had that diagnostic problem come to the fore, because the only explanation I could have is it's an indirect route, but it's inner wealth. The inner wealth is what gave wind under their wings to see, I have what it takes to speak, even though I don't like this creepy environment and it's not serving me and it's not a good fit for me. I could speak anyway and speak my truth. You're much more able to speak your truth when you're feeling enriched inside. And yes, we could do it for ourselves, but kids are less likely to do it for themselves. They're not going to wake up at age 2 and start telling themselves great things about themselves. They're going to take the imprints they get from the way they're raised.
Right.
How do we literally raise kids up?
Yeah. a lot of time, there are different things that I find when I work with clients that I think, okay, how do we reverse engineer these things so that we create a different experience for those, coming after us? And one of them is the idea that people aren't interested in me, like my parents didn't pay attention to me, or I was excluded at school, or I grew up in a large family and everyone was talking over me. I didn't want to compete. So that's one thing. And I see how this can really help. The idea of, we want to hear what you have to say. Like bringing that out is very powerful, I think. But there are also other things that go on. And I'm curious about your opinion about this. So for instance, let's say the whole school system is predicated on you get the highest grades for making the fewest mistakes or none at all. And that is like a hamstring, even for you might think, well, the person who doesn't do as well in school, they may not feel as good and that they're good enough, or they are afraid of making mistakes. Everyone's afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah.
But the people who have done well are can especially be hamstringed by this, because they feel like they've come to the conclusion that they're valued because they're so smart, and people like him, or they have the love of their parents because they've always been perfect. And so then the idea that they can't control being perfect all the time when they're speaking feels like, oh my God, that was like a 97. Oh my God, that was a failure.
Right.
So I've had a lot of clients who have been very high, excelling in school, but they're fine, in small groups, but it's like this inadvertent hamstring that we're putting on our kids. Do you have any thoughts about that? Do you have any thoughts about grading?
Yeah, and it makes me curious if you've been hired by schools to come in and share your brilliance. I do. I feel like it is a blind spot of organized education that what you're saying is true. It sounds true to me. It's like putting education under the microscope and seeing a flaw in how we convey belief systems about the fewest mistakes, everything. I'd just be repeating everything you said. I have no doubt that it hampers everyone from the bottom up to the ways you're describing very smart people. And I'm a visual person, so I was imagining, somebody being good at technology, somebody being good, really accomplished at something they never thought would put them in the limelight, never thought, it would take them to a place of starting a company, or being a party to, that level of existence. And all of a sudden they have, a company with, or a vast influence, and they're speaking in front, they're completely unprepared for that experience, because just because you are academically accomplished and you've fit through the funnel of how you're describing people coming to the top, it doesn't necessarily mean you've had any exposure or true exposure to inner wealth. So you could be inwardly impoverished while being successful. And then you hit that point of needing a coach like you, or realizing, like, I don't ever want to speak. It's interesting, when I first came back from woodworking, into this arena, and I started developing in the early 90s the nurtured heart approach. And I, toward the middle late part of that decade, I started hatching this approach and teaching classes. And I know we got to go in a couple of minutes. And I did this trade with a local agency where they could send clients to my classes in trade for a free space, a meeting space. And this went on for a couple of years, and they'd kind of tug at my coat strings and say, could you do an in-service for our company? And I kept saying, no, I'm not a public speaker. I don't know how to speak. I don't want to do that. I would have no idea how to describe my work. I have no background in presentations. And I said no for a good 2 years. And finally, my arm was twisted. I was having success with clients. It was, they just pushed harder, and I finally conceded, and I got a couple of coaching sessions from a colleague. And then I gave an hour or two seminar. And while I was leaving, I was privately saying, I'm never, ever, 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 ever going to do this again. It was so yucky. I felt so unprepared to share. I felt like what I was saying was so, hard to explain and so superficial, and my colleagues would laugh me out of the place, it was so flew in the face of this, what I'd studied at NYU. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I'm in a store, and somebody taps me on the shoulder, and this beautiful long-haired man says, "Hi, I'm Armando, and I run this department, one of the departments at this agency, and all of us were at your talk, and we're all using your approach, and we're all having great results." It was like, oh God, please. But that was a vital switching point where, at the very least, I knew I had to get word out there of what I do. And I knew it was beyond me and my silly insular world, which I was happy to keep insular. And I've been the silly person who not only teaches, here's how to do this with kids, but I do this privately on myself. It's my private practice. It's what I believe in. It's how I construct my inner conversations. And lo and behold, there have been times where, I was once asked to do a breakout session. You've done breakout sessions at conferences, and most of the ones I've done, they're not keynotes. They're, 40, 50, 100 people. I walked into a homeschool conference that I was invited to last minute, and they said, "Oh, we just have a couple of breakout sessions. Would you do them?" And it was like 1,100 people. And it was like, oh, I could do this, So I think it's been the building up, that I feel prepared to speak to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big that room is anymore, because I've done whatever I've done on the inside to revamp, to retone, to atone.
Yes, you retuned yourself.
Of others. And my own, of beating myself up.
Yeah, you retuned yourself. That's so great. That's so great. I love that. I feel like we're similar in that way, in that we put ourselves through our own paces and our own beliefs and our own healing processes to get to where we needed to go to share it with other people. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful that you've done that. It's really beautiful. And I know what it takes, because I that's what I did too. I mean, I fell across my method coming out of my own need 8 years ago. And, when I was just tired of pushing through the fear and managing it. And I had lots of management techniques. I've been a performer for 40 years, and I have a degree in expressive arts therapy. And I just knew I had lots of tools to help myself manage it. But then I got tired of managing it. I said, I just want to get rid of it. And I thought, let's see how I can do that. And I figured out a way. And it was fantastic to be on the other side. It's like, wow, yeah, just like what you said, I can do this.
Yeah, you're not managing.
I'm not managing. I didn't have anything to manage anymore.
It's tiring. It's true.
Yes, and there's so much
different way. You build the reservoir of your belief, your self-belief, to the point where you no longer have to manage it. You just know you got this.
Yes. And now I feel like the task is to become ever clearer, or more concise, or more entertaining, even, So how to play with it more, and how to, make the message easier to consume and spread.
Can I tell you a virtuoso story? So this guy, I had the audacity to open a woodworking store in New York City. And I didn't know what I was doing, but, I would get the gift of people who needed work, who had experience, who coincidentally came to work, at just the right time to get the level of what the work I had taken on that I wouldn't have otherwise known what to do. And finally, the last guy who worked for me was a virtuoso. He could do anything. It doesn't mean, though, that he never had an moment where he said, he said dicey things in Italian that, were like swear words, like when he encountered something I had botched up, or, something tough. But he would use that as the empowerment, a further building of, I got this. I got this.
Wow.
And I do see that in you. And I love hearing that about your story.
Thank you.
Kindred spirit. We do have that in common. As we bring this to a close,
have
that in common. What a delightful time I've had with you.
Oh, thank you. This has been a pure joy. And I like how it worked out that we got to have actually like almost an hour and a half together. I didn't expect to do that. So I'm going to be putting all your links in the show notes where people can find you online, where they can find your books. Is there anything?
Post this onto my network on Facebook. I don't have like multimedia, but I have at least Facebook following. So sure, I'd love to post this.
Great. Wonderful. It was just a fun. I just want to very quickly, if I can insert this quickly, your story about cleaning up the demolition. Speaking of,
that story.
Keydon. Oh my gosh. I've been wondering, where did I hear that story? Because I've been thinking about that as I work out in the garden, as I clean up my house. I always think of that now. It totally changed how I work.
Yeah.
And then I was rereading Notching Up, and then I found I think it was in that book, or maybe it was in the Your Oprah. I can't remember, but one of those two books, because I was rereading them recently for this, and I came across that story. I thought, oh my God, it's from Howie that I learned that story, and that made such a big impression.
Yeah, we were this man who was, he had danced with Balanchine. He was just this epic, Adonis human being, was a top model at Ford agency. He and his wife bought a farmhouse, and we were demolishing room after room of this old plastic lathing and crowbars and stuff. And the whole, we demolished the whole room, except for the structure. And he would attack one corner of, like, get it in the wheelbarrow, move it outside, get it to the dump. And little by little, that's my, little by little, he would not only clear a little space, but then he'd sweep it. So while 3/4 of the room is still just powdered, ancient history, he would find the beauty and move it, get it all cleaned up. And
have that satisfaction.
And it was so apparent in the way he conducted himself.
Yeah.
It was like, so thanks for that memory. I'm writing, the book I'm writing now is called Notching In. So it's about applying this approach to ourselves. So maybe it'll be relevant. I will get you a copy of that.
I look forward to reading it.
So people can look me up and find Nurtured Art Institute. And I'm so honored to be with you. This has been the best time.
Aw, dream come true for me, Howie. Thank you so much.
Anytime, next time.
All right. I might take you up on that.
Please do.
Okay. Have a great day.
You as well.